larger, it's more heterogeneous, which means that it is beginning to have a greater level of diversity as opposed to a homogeneous environment in birth, where it most likely looks all the same or the situation looks very similar. Now, with growth, you have some form of formalization, and it is somewhat less centralized. You begin to have managers exist and get involved. There's a lot of cost efficiency while trying to maintain an innovation bent. Now, with maturity, it's a larger size, it's more competitive, more heterogeneous, more formal, more bureaucratic. There's professional management. Risk avoidance may begin to creep in at this stage. There's a focus on cost efficiency and consolidation of their position in the market. Now with revival, it is very large, it's heterogeneous, but now it's now more dynamic, and you have more of a competitive environment. It's more of a divisional and matrix structure. You have a participative decision-making style, high level of risk taken in revival stage. There's substantial innovation going on. There's a strategy of product market diversification. With decline, it's more homogeneous. The organization probably remain homogeneous. There's more of an internal focus. It's very formalized, bureaucratic, centralized, conservative. Risk avoidance is probably rife. You have low cost, low level of innovation, consolidation of product market, and low level of agility and flexibility as well here. Let's talk about Porter's five forces. So Porter's five forces is mainly a framework to help organizations understand the external environment that they operate in. So the competitive forces that work in that industry they operate in. Remember we said value chain looks within the organization. Porter's five forces looks without the organization, looks at the external competitive forces at work in that industry that the organization operates in. And it looks at how it drives economic value. And so one of the key forces in Porter's five forces is right here in the circle, rivalry among existing competitors. And so what happens here is the organization has to be aware of its rivals, okay? Then threat of new entrants. Here you have barriers to entry. So economies of scale, all this will determine how hard this threat of new entrants can be on an organization. If there are barriers to entry, it may not be such a threat. If there's a high barrier to entry, or if there's a low barrier to entry, then this is a significant threat for the organization. And things like brand loyalty also would count here, government policies as well, switching costs as well. Now, bargaining power of buyers matters. So the bargaining power of the customers, it's also one of the forces the organization has to be cognizant of. Here you have number of customers, the size of each customer's orders, differences between competitors, price sensitivity, switching cost as well, the buyer's ability to substitute. Now you have threat of substitute product. And I always think about coffee and tea because I go back and forth between those two. Sometimes I'm in the mood for coffee, sometimes I'm in the mood for tea. And those are substitute products. So there's that threat as well. If an organization is involved in selling coffee beverages, tea, green tea, black tea, all those types of teas, those are threat of substitute products to that organization. And here you have number of substitute products available, buyer propensity to substitute, relative price performance of substitutes, perceived level of product differentiation, and switching cost as well. Now here you have bargaining power of suppliers. The suppliers that supply the organization its materials or its product that it sells, they also are a force that the organization needs to be aware of, right? So here you have number and size of suppliers, uniqueness of each supplier's product, focal company's ability to substitute, and also the quality of the supplier's product. So if a particular supplier's product has a very high level of quality, and that's what the customers prefer, that supplier has a higher bargaining power. Now here you see what we're talking about initially, rivalry among existing competitors, the number of competitors, the diversity of the competitors, the industry concentration, quality difference, brand loyalty, barriers to exit, and switching cost as well. So those are the 5 forces that Michael Porter talked about